Time for another participant spotlight. Kellie Auld is here from Team Matrix, but you know, Kellie, during our participant spotlights, we don't really talk about the team. We talk about you and the things that you do. And I know that in your profession with simply communicating, it's all about the people. But there's a term that kind of makes you cringe. HR, right? Everybody in the industry knows HR, but you're not fond of that term. Why is that?
Well, I guess because I have a different perception of what human resources or HR brings to an organization. And as you've mentioned, I think it's all about the people.
Right.
And sometimes we lose sight of that. And the whole HR profession has kind of been so concerned about being a business partner that they've forgotten that the people are the business.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of where simply communicating came from, was the fact that we need to kind of maybe take a step back and look at things from simpler viewpoints.
One of the things that I really like about how you approach your profession is that it's all about clarity. You know, like if there's not a clear idea of what's required of the employee or expected of the employee, and vice versa, you know, what the employer is going to bring to the table, if those expectations aren't clear, all of a sudden, what's that old acronym, FEAR, you know, false evidence appearing real. Employers start making up their own visions of what the potential challenge could be, and really just deal with the facts, right? Get it all out on the table, make sure there's an understanding.
Exactly, and clarity is a very good way of putting it. And I think quite frequently, as you say, the perception isn't always what you think it is. And so the best way to figure that out is to ask those questions, and ask them sooner rather than later, because when we allow things to sort of simmer away and you know, we start to build this vision of what the problem is, and we're putting assumptions into that other person's view of the world that we don't necessarily know is indeed true.
You know, before we started shooting the segment, we had an interesting conversation about generational thinking, and how the older generation is thinking, you know, the younger generation, they don't want to work, and you know, that kind of stuff. That again is really a misperception on behalf of, for the most part, the employers.
Very true, and the same works in reverse. I mean, we think that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, indeed you can. You know, it really depends on the approach that you use and finding out what works for that individual. So again, you know, referring to the younger generation, and I have heard that, you know, gee, they don't have the work ethic and they don't. Well, no, that's not necessarily true. They just have different wants and needs, perhaps, than what our generation has. And I think in many ways what they want to have is a value.
Right.
And so let's find out, what does that look like to them?
Right.
You know, and there's a really interesting person that I've been following, and his name is Tony Hsieh, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he is the CEO of Zappos.
Okay.
And now there's an organization where his employees are not well paid, so there flies the view of the world that it's all about money, because it isn't. Right. He has a much younger generation that's the workforce that he typically has, not all, but typically.
So how does he do it? How does he? Because
he allows them to create their culture.
Right.
And that's what's really important, is what is our true culture.
Right.
You know, a lot of organizations put in all kinds of, well, we might have a gym, or we might have this, and those are all wonderful things, but are they really what your employees want?
You know, and you touched on something really profound, the money. What the analogy used was the carrot and the donkey type of thing, right? Well, here's these nice things that you can get if you keep on working. I've seen lots of studies, as I'm sure you have, where, you know, top 10 employee wants, and money's like down around number 7 or 8. They want to feel like they're part of a team. They want to feel like their voice is heard. They want to feel like they're engaged in the company vision. All of those things make it easier to spring out of bed and come to work. When you feel like you're just a number or a widget in the machine, all of a sudden it gets less personal.
It's meaningless.
Yeah, you don't feel like you're engaged in what's going on.
Well, another word that you just used there that I really stress to employers is vision. What is your vision? What is your mission, vision, and values? And when your employees understand that, they can be part of it. And again, to refer to Zappos, his employees helped him make up the values of that organization. So they all have an investment in terms of, this is what we said we wanted, and so now we have something to work toward. So yes, I think that's really, really important. And the science states, exactly as you said, it's not about the money.
Right.
It's about, now, having said that, there are certain occupations where incentivizing does work.
Right.
If you're in a production line and you put out X amount of widgets in a certain period of time, then yes, those incentives will work.
Sales is another good one. The more you sell, the
Yeah,
bigger the
exactly.
commission checks.
But if you allow your employees the freedom to come to their conclusions, you create more vision for them. They have more creative ideas because you actually disincentivize when you use money all the time.
Right.
And it's very interesting. There's some really good studies out there, but business just kind of hasn't really caught up to the science.
Yeah.
And you know what? A simple thank you, when it's sincere,
Sure.
goes a long way. And if people know that they are appreciated for what it is they bring to the table, then you know what? They're probably going to be willing to give even more because they know that they are appreciated for what they do. So while you know, as you mentioned, you can throw all the money at it that you want, but you know what? That after a while doesn't mean anything. Yeah.
What would you say? I'm interested to kind of peek behind the curtain here a little bit. What would you say to an employer or a boss who says, why should I care about incentivizing them? They get paid. That's all we need to worry about. Their paycheck never bounces. All their benefits are there. You know, just do your job.
I guess what I would probably say is, okay, so let's step away from the employment relationship and let's take a look at some of your personal relationships. Is that how you are with your friendships? Is it all a one-sided equation? Is that how it is with your personal, you know, maybe marital relationship or whatever? All I'm saying is think about it, because as human beings, we desire more. Our lives need to have some meaning. So yes, they're your employees, but they also have a right to be treated well, and I think you're going to find that if you treat them well, you know, it'll all come back to you in kind. And so I guess I would step them away from the, you know, that mindset and say, let's take a look at other areas of your life.
Right.
Like we focus, particularly those who are in a customer service industry. Now that could be in restaurants or hotels or retail or what have you. If they're treated really well, then chances are they're going to treat the customers really well. And that does show. And I do talk to a lot of organizations, small and medium size is predominantly my target. And I do explain to them that, you know, we need to maybe take a look at your culture, and see where you really are. And when I talk about culture, it's the way we do things around here. So let's maybe take a look and see how that works for you, and what do your employees think, and you know, maybe even have some conversations with them. It's amazing to me how many people are afraid to take that initial step.
Oh, if I say something wrong, he might leave, and I need that guy or that girl. You know, they're very important to my organization. But get them engaged, have the conversation, treat them like an equal, and
if they're important, how often do you let them know that?
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Well, I think one of the mistakes I've seen, and really kind of one of the areas that motivated me to move out onto my own, is that we really don't bring our employees into our organizations in the way that we should.
Get them engaged.
Get them engaged, and to do that, I think right from the get-go, you know, before they even walk in the door, you should have some understanding of what the role is that they're going to do, and how are you going to bring them up to speed. So orientations and onboarding, and onboarding is a relatively new term in Canada, but really it just means integration. So think ahead, you know, how are we going to bring that employee up and working faster and more effectively, because nobody wants to feel incompetent. So the sooner they can be up and running and doing what they need to do,
feeling
the better.
confident about their role.
Exactly. And so put a little bit of planning and preparation into that. And I've seen that as being a big error in a lot of organizations.
Orientation, you say, is what, first 3 or 4 weeks?
Well, orientation typically would be your first 3 days to a week.
Okay.
And then you move into the longer phase of onboarding. And onboarding would be 3 months, 6 months, even longer, depending on the position. And what their learning curve might be, etc. The objective is obviously to make them successful and bring them up to speed more quickly. However, the other plus to the employer is that if they don't fit, you have this window of opportunity in which you can move them out if you have to. and it's not a great cost to the organization.
Okay, great. Let's use that as our first plus then.
Okay.
What's another positive that you want employers and organizations to consider when dealing with new employers or
Right.
new employees or whatever the case is?
Well, I think, as you mentioned earlier, the clarity, right? What do I really expect of
Right.
you? What is the way we do things around here? What works for us? What doesn't work? You know, where do they maybe have a certain latitude that they can create their own
Right.
workspace? And what are some of the things that, you know, for whatever reason, need to be, they're done this way and this is
Make
why.
the job description clear, make the expectations clear, answer questions when they happen,
Absolutely, yeah.
and keep everything above board. It'll save you
Exactly.
headaches in the long run.
Absolutely.
All right,
Yeah.
shameless plug time. How do we find you on the web?
Oh, I have a very easy website. It's
Okay.
www.simplycommunicating.ca.
Her name is Kellie Auld. She's an HR specialist, but don't call her that because she hates the title. You get the feeling. Simply Communicating is the name of the business. Kellie's been our guest. Not only a great member of Team Matrix, but a great professional in the city of Kamloops as well. Thanks for joining us today.
Gene.